The term coexistence seems to be showing up more and more the last several years in literature and published research studies. The idea of coexistence or coexisting with wildlife originated in the field of human-wildlife conflict, and it mostly revolved around the responsibility of people to eliminate or secure things that would attract wildlife that then leads to conflict with people and injuries and deaths of wildlife. The idea was to live in proximity with wildlife without conflict or minimizing conflict. But it seems like the term coexistence has been co-opted, and now it means letting wildlife live directly amongst people in our cities, our communities, and our neighborhoods. Now, I'm not talking about chickadees and robins. I'm talking about people that are advocating for humans to coexist in their neighborhoods, in their communities, with grizzly bears and black bears and cougars and coyotes and raccoons and urban deer. The term coexistence has also been co-opted to be synonymous with the idea that we don't need to hunt or trap wildlife. We just need to simply coexist with wildlife. There's no reason to hunt or trap them. But the people that are advocating for wildlife to live among people as coexistence, that's not coexistence. That's actually cohabitation. And I don't think that that's the best thing for humans or wildlife. There's studies that have been done on urban coyotes in Alberta, and they're actually much sicker and unhealthy than their wild cousins. They have garbage and plastic and rubber in their stomachs. They're carrying much higher parasite loads than their wild cousins, included the hydatid disease, which they get from eating infected house mice. Then people's dogs come in contact with the coyote poop where they contract the hydatid disease, and then the dogs pass it on to humans. It's a fatal disease for humans, often misdiagnosed as cancer. I was recently at a meeting where biologists were talking about a study on urban deer, actually in my community, and the researchers were noting how unhealthy the deer were in late March in the urban environment compared to deer that were living in the wild. Wildlife that are cohabitating with people get injured more often. They get struck by cars, they get attacked by dogs, they get injured on fences in our infrastructure, and they end up suffering and having to be put down. At the end of the day, this idea of cohabitation is not for the benefit of wildlife. Wildlife are paying the price for people that want some sort of like fairy tale life in their community, like Shrek or Disneyland. And I think this is really unfair and unethical for the wildlife to be advocating for this cohabitation model. Every animal defends its own space. You don't see beavers letting otters live inside their beaver house with their kits. Layering on top of this notion of cohabitating with wildlife is now a new term I'm seeing called co-flourishing. People are advocating for this cohabitation model to grow and for populations of coyotes and black bears and urban deer to actually flourish in the urban environment, in the people's habitat. This is only going to lead to more animal suffering, more wildlife deaths, and more wildlife that are living in an urban environment that are not as healthy as their wild counterparts. To me, the ethical thing to do for people is to keep wildlife wild, in wild natural habitats, and to prevent habitat loss, which is more often than not the number one thing that hunters talk about, preventing habitat loss.